2021. It is with a lot of emotion that I come to this podium this morning to speak with you, to share with you, because we too are conscious, all of us, that we are in a process of transition, that the journey has started and continues at a new level. 396 years of a system of government is not 2 years. And it is with that in mind that I am conscious that we have a responsibility as of December 1st, tomorrow, to ensure that our nation moves as one. As I said here at the opening of Golden Square Freedom Park on Saturday, that we also, in all that we do, use this symbol of this Freedom Park to remind us that forever we must see people, hear people, and feel people. And it is against that backdrop, therefore, that I've come this morning to share with you. I want first and foremost to thank His Royal Highness Prince Charles for coming and joining us for the ceremony last night, to allow us to show the world and to reflect as a people who we are. A people proud, but a people determined and confident that we shall pursue our destiny. Recognizing that we can have difficult conversations with each other without being acrimonious with each other. That we can disagree without being disagreeable. I thank him for being a man ahead of his time, for recognizing at the global level the importance of taking care of this earth, which is the only one that we have, this planet. And for recognizing that without young people, we have no future. I thank you, Prince Charles. Our country will remain a strong and vibrant member of the Commonwealth, and we look forward to working with you under your leadership of the Commonwealth. I want to thank my brothers and sisters of the Caribbean region who have joined us today. This means more than you will ever know. And it is because our people, in this very difficult and turbulent times, must always remember that we don't walk this earth alone, and that we have committed, whether it was in the failed attempt of the West Indies Federation, or whether it is in the current incarnation of CARICOM, that we have committed that we will always treat each other better than we treat anyone else, because we are one family with one destiny. Your presence here symbolizes a respect for the Barbadian journey and the Barbadian people, and it is not lost upon us. We thank you, because in the very real words of Earl Walton Barrow, the Right Excellent, that we are one family moving through this region. And it is the ordinary people of the Caribbean that have literally provided the glue to keep us together. Not us as heads of government, but the people who ply their trades, the people who move across the islands, the people who fall in love with each other, the people who work and praise with each other. And this region, this Caribbean region, is all that we have. And may we bless it and protect it with all that is within us. We see this moment this morning as a transitioning of our mental landscape. We have done well as a nation to be able to take care of many of the basic needs of our people. Have we completed the journey? No, we have not. But have we transformed this nation since 1966? Most assuredly, we have. And our ability to continue that journey depends now not on anyone from outside, but depends on us. And one of the most critical aspects of that journey, as I've said over and over, must be the recognition, in the words of Marcus Messiah Garvey, that it is ours to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery, for none but ourselves can do it. None but ourselves can free our minds. But even then, we must now accept that none but ourselves can build this nation. I ask us, as I've done over the last few weeks, to recognize that the change in our mental landscape, the things that we do, the things that we can believe, the way we treat each other, is perhaps the most important change that must happen. And do we expect it to happen overnight? No. It hasn't happened over 55 years, and we will not change back centuries of mental brainwashing in decades. The fact that it will take us long, the fact that it will take us across generations, does not at any stage remove from us the obligation of moving forward full speed ahead to bring as many of our people with us on this journey of changing our mental landscape. It is for this reason that we are happy to have a charter that reflects the best of who we are, that says what we want to pledge to each other, that puts at its core that we want active citizenship because we must build this nation as one people. There are times when some will tire. There are times when some will oppose. There are times when some will just leave the scene. But that does not remove from the rest of us the obligation of nurturing this nation, building this nation. And I want, therefore, very quickly to speak to a few groups of people. I want to speak to the young people of this nation and to the mature citizens of this nation together. Because more than anything else, the winds that have been turbulent on our landscape have not just been about racial conflict or class conflict. It has been about generational conflict and difference in values. This country, like most others, must be mature enough to manage these conflicts and to recognize that we need each other, that those who are mature and older have a duty to continue to guide our young people and to talk with them and to mentor them, but to understand that theirs is a completely different world from the one in which we grew. It was when I was 15 years old that I saw the first video machine, videotape, and in that space of the last 40 years, we can stand here and reach every corner of the world by technological means, as our president last night indicated to us when she said by technology, wherever her voice was being heard and her image was being seen. The change is daunting. The capacity for ordinary persons to manage that change is sometimes questionable. But if we hold on to each other and support each other, we can make the journey. And why? We as a people have a responsibility to keep this country safe, to keep this country secure, and to keep it comfortable for our mature citizens, to allow them to live out their lives in dignity. But we have a duty to build Barbados for our young people. For without them, they will not be able, or we will not be able, to secure our future and to protect the very same mature citizens that we need to be able to live out their lives in dignity. Our young people must believe that this is the best country to provide their best future, that they must be at home in this nation, that they must not feel like tenants in our nation, and that they must understand that what we are building is freely available to everyone. For our republic, our parliamentary republic, must be fundamentally about justice and peace and security and opportunity and fairness. The difficult discussions will come just as they do in our families, and we must not shy away from them as a nation. Contrary to public opinion, I am actually happy for the level of dialogue that we have been able to engender in this nation. For this has been a nation where people have preferred to speak in mute tones. This has been a nation where sometimes we've been told not to allow the voices of our children to be heard, when in truth and in fact, what we need are young, confident people acting as global citizens, ready to take on the world, but never forgetting their Barbadian roots. Should the prospect of major change deter us as a people? Why would it? When our whole history on this island, even those who we never got to know well, the Amerindians who were taken, arguably by the historians reflecting with us in what might be the first major genocide in the Americas. An island that has seen a parliament used both as an instrument of oppression, but now as a tool of empowerment. Our DNA reflects our capacity to survive, to live, to adjust to unforeseen events, to recognize that our history is intertwined with disruption and hardship, expression, ambition, hope, and now finally, complete responsibility and sovereignty for ourselves, subject only to the Almighty, the Creator, the Jah, Allah, or whoever you may want to call him or her. I want to talk to the young mothers and the young fathers of this nation. For you, more than any other, are the ones who will be required to help us build out this nation. You are the ones who can teach wrong from right. We will help reinforce it in our churches, in our schools. But the primary responsibility must always be yours. And regardless of what you face in life, that responsibility of teaching our children wrong from right must never cease. That capacity to foster respect, loyalty, compassion, all of the values that make a difference to the kind of people we shall be. Everlasting curiosity, those are yours to imbue in our children. And yes, in this pandemic, life can be hard. We know it. And the things we expect or see are not necessarily the same. But our responsibility must forever be to nurture those children in the same way, might I add, that your great-grandparents and your great-great-grandparents did it with less. Senator Rogers reminded us in a most brilliant sermon for the independence message of what it was like to accept with joy a brown mint split in 4 or 5, including the dust from the mint. And now today, many ask, why not more? I want to speak to our public servants. For yours is the responsibility to transform this nation. Yes, transform. We have rules, but in many instances, those rules were for a 19th or 20th century Barbados. Our police force, as it then was established in 1838. It is the 3rd oldest in the Commonwealth. Today, as the Barbados Police Service, your name change is not simply a name change for a republic, but it is fundamentally about the service you provide to this community. You are from us and of us, and you help us hold this nation together. And while some may not always say thank you, I say thank you to you today for helping us to keep this nation together. To the members of the Barbados Defense Force, all who ever doubted whether we should have such a body will now come to understand its critical importance. I didn't know what we would face when we were elected in 2018, but the choice of Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic as Minister of Health and his ability to seamlessly bring along the Barbados Defense Force to help us fight this country's greatest battle since independence has been perhaps one of the wisest decisions that I have made in this government. I want to thank our medical personnel, from our doctors to our nurses to our orderlies, to those running the kitchens, to those in the laundry, to those driving the trucks, to those carrying the tests, to those in the labs. I can go on and on. For the last 22 months, I have watched you day by day by day provide human service to this country. And it is for that reason that even though our honors are much larger this year than usual, there couldn't be any other way. Because without you, many of us would not be here today. And we are conscious that many of you have sacrificed your families, many of you have sacrificed your own health to be able to keep this nation together, and to ensure that while the pandemic has been awful, it could have been so much more worse than it is today, were it not for your valiant efforts in keeping us safe. I have not forgotten those administrators who kept you going, because without them, you would not be able to do your job seamlessly as well. I want to thank those at the border security agencies, customs and immigration and port and security guards, because you too, in the midst of all of the uncertainty, who tests at an airport? Who disrupts all of the things that you're accustomed to? And each of you fell into line in spite of this country facing its most grave challenges. I want to thank ordinary public servants. You know, we changed the vision and mission, and I'm not going to repeat it in all today, but the simple point is, we are called a service because we are expected to serve people. And I ask us always in serving people to remember, it is not about what is easy for us, but it is about what we must do for people to make their lives easier and better. Similarly, I ask us to recognize that we live in a world that is different, and that yes, decisions are being made sometimes at lightning speed. And some say, well, why so fast and why rush through this? Because if we don't, we will be left on the side of history. Our country is simply too small for us to cause people to remember that we are here. We know it well when the orders that we place for food or medicine or equipment in a pandemic are left one side because they're just not big enough to capture the attention of those who have significant demand for their goods and services. And in understanding that, I ask us therefore to recognize that we will have sometimes to do more, to do quicker, and to do better. But that is not beyond the capacity, for you stand on the shoulders of some of the greatest public servants that have ever served in the Commonwealth. And I ask us to live with that in our minds, recognizing that the times in which we live demand different types of behavior. I want to speak very quickly to our business people, to our vendors. We promised you a new deal. And the greatest pride I have is that Friday morning, The first piece of legislation that we expect to be passed
The
in
relevant report by
Barbados'
the
parliament
Pentagon has fully
will
exposed
be
the true
the
intention of the
legislation
U.S.
that
side to
provides a
militarize the
new deal for
Indo-Pacific, and it
vendors,
shows
a
they are sparing no
legislation that will
efforts to
stop
ensure
their
the freedom
families and to do good by them. This has been in the works for over 6 decades. And the stories of how many people in this country are only here because of the extent to which their parents and grandparents were able to take sun and rain in order to sell so that they could keep you in school and keep you with body and soul together. It is time, it is time, it is time. And to our other businessmen, small and medium and the few large, no one owes us a living. And we have accepted that we will engage the world and that we must earn our way, first and foremost within our Caribbean single market, but beyond in the Americas and the wider world. We have become accustomed to being able to sell what we want here and to live well here. But if nothing must prove to us that that is unacceptable, it must be the last 10 to 12 years when no matter what we did locally was not sufficient in order to create enough goods and services to maintain our quality of life. I ask us therefore to recognize, and I say to my brothers who are here, that if you see some Barbadian businessmen come in, treat them well as we have treated yours who have come here well. But I ask you to go further afield, for we have cast our eyes to both Africa and to Central and Latin America. And we recognize that with language and with bridging the gap by removing the historic wrong, that in the third decade of the 21st century, there is still no direct link with Africa. It is wrong, and we must work as a Caribbean community to correct it, for we must remove the middle passage, the middleman, and the middle leg, and allow for direct engagement with our brothers and sisters. I ask us equally to recognize as businesses that without your workers you can do nothing. And therefore the first respect must be paid to those who work with you and for you. And it is against that backdrop that we make no apology for us at Golden Square Freedom Park, the place where our modern democracy was born, the place that sparked the 1937 rebellion, the place that led to the formation of political parties, the place that led to the formation of trades union in this country. I say to you today that we make no apology for putting labor first, because for too long labor was treated as if it was not human in this nation. I ask our diplomats who work on our behalf to recognize that we have determined as a nation to engage the world, for we know that we cannot do it alone and we cannot produce enough of what we need here. The challenges of our generation have changed. Food, nutritional food, and water are the new oil of our times. And we have a responsibility to ensure that first and foremost we can provide for ourselves that which we need here. That is why we are so consumed in having to fight against this existential crisis of the climate crisis, because it threatens to undermine our capacity to keep our people together with respect to the scarcity of water, the droughts, with respect to the potential intrusion, saltwater intrusion into our aquifers on our coast, with the removal of coastal communities like what happened at Sixmans Bay and other parts of our west coast. We have a responsibility now that goes beyond that which was otherwise those that were inherited at the time of independence. And I speak therefore to us in this way today, asking us above all else to be our brothers and our sisters' keeper. To recognize that the battles that we face that are beyond our control, like climate, like the pandemic, like violence. Prime Minister Rowley was the one requesting the last time our heads of government met in this country. Last time we met face-to-face was in Barbados in 2020. And we determined that there needs to be a regional consultation because we must treat violence in our Caribbean communities as the public health disease that it is, and it will take an entire region and civilization to fight it, and not just governments or the church. I ask us today to recognize, my friends, that what comes of December 1st and onwards is ours to determine. I know we can do it. I know we shall do it. And I know that we stand on the legacy of many, because as we have said, this is a continuum. This is a relay. And to the extent, therefore, that we start off hereinafter, we must always pay homage to those who went before. I want in particular, lest there be any muddled messages, to thank all who have served in this high office. I thank the Right Excellent Sir Grantley Herbert Adams, the father of our democracy, for giving us the right to vote through universal adult suffrage, and for changing our labor laws, and for creating the platform for social enfranchisement. I thank the Right Excellent Errol Walton Barrow for giving a nation the belief that it could walk this earth, no longer loitering on colonial premises, but ensuring that we can provide for ourselves and start the business of dealing with the education, the health, the welfare, and the housing of our people. Recognizing, however, that to deal with all of them would require decades because of the destitute nature of our people that we inherited at the point of independence. I thank the Honorable Tom Adams, who in many respects laid the foundation for the modern economy of this nation, and who understood that if we were going to give Barbadians a stake, that first stake should be in the ownership of land, with the passage of the most revolutionary piece of legislation for land reform outside of Cuba in the Americas, the Tenantries Freehold Purchase Act. I thank Sir Harold Bernard St. John for his earnest commitment to regional integration and for playing that massive role that he played in allowing us to reformat our trade relations with the African, Caribbean, and Pacific nations. I thank Sir Lloyd Erskine Sandiford for not only understanding that education was the bedrock of this country, but for ensuring that the Barbados Community College, and for ensuring that our youngsters would have to have other post-secondary opportunities in this nation. But I thank him as well for being courageous to take the difficult decisions of the early 1990s that allowed this nation to be stabilized and to grow from strength to strength. I thank the man who in many respects helped guide me, the Right Honorable Owen Seymour Arthur, for taking another generation of Barbadians and inspiring us to higher heights, building on the foundations of the new economy left by Tom Adams and bringing into play the fairness and transparency necessary to make that economy effective. To recognize that every Barbadian should have the right to have a job, and for recognizing that we must not settle for the bronze, must not settle for the silver, but must always go for the gold. I thank the Honorable David John Howard Thompson for seeing people, hearing people, and feeling people, for recognizing that his journey was too short, and for also recognizing that a different generation needed to step to the plates, and he made space for them, and I thank him for that. And I thank Frundle Jerome Stewart for also recognizing that this step to a republic was a necessary one. For he, on our 50th anniversary, recognized that it was important that as one nation, we should go forward confident in our capacity as a people to settle and govern our own affairs at all times. My friends, you will know that I have chosen today to thank each and every one. And why? We are too small. We are too small to be torn apart for any reason, particularly partisan political reasons. And whatever else we must do, as we have vigorous discussion, as we have vigorous debate and opposition, there must always be a place for us to agree in the interests of Barbados and for the people of Barbados. It is for that reason that we chose deliberately to ensure that in the election of our president, ma'am, that there must always be that two-thirds majority. Recognizing that as in the last parliament, there may only have been a simple majority. But the people who have the responsibility to articulate and to represent the people of this nation in the parliament of this nation must always find it possible to rise above those partisan tones and to find a unifying force in this nation as we have found in you, ma'am, to lead us as now a new parliamentary republic. My friends, ours has been a long journey, 396 years. Not 40, 396. For if you asked anyone who was here then, if they would want to be subservient or be a serf to someone else, they would have said no. And therefore we mark this journey not from the Ford Commission, but from the settlement of this nation as a modern country. Recognizing, however, as that wall behind us tells us, the wall of memory that carries the names of every person who has ever lived on this island, and for those whose last names we never will remember, we have a special monument to pay tribute to you. And we do so conscious that we only occupy this space and this place for a limited time. Let us do credit to our nation. Let us add to what we have inherited. And let us make this country one of the best in the world as a small state, but more importantly, one of the best for the world as a small state. In the words of our anthem, we know it only too well. The Lord, and I ask you to join me, the Lord has been the people's guide for past 300 years. I cannot hear you. The Lord has been the people's guide for the past 300 years. With him still on the people's side, we have no doubts nor fears. Upward and onward we shall go, inspired, exulting free, and greater will Barbados grow in strength and unity. May God forever bless this nation, and may God forever bless our people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.